I believe it's just him and another person that didn't, yes, Enoch and everybody else. So he did not see death, right? So Elijah ascends to heaven, and we see then continuing through the book of 2 Kings, the ascension of, or the ascension, maybe that's too much, Elisha being the prophet that is going to replace Elijah, and some of the history that happens during the time that Elisha was the prophet. So in the lesson today, just for the sake of making it a little bit memorable, I wanted to cover really 2 Kings, but through the eyes of Elisha, because Elisha is a very fascinating character to study, and we're going to see a little bit about him and what made Elisha so special. And I'll say right off from the beginning that one of the things that made Elisha so special is Elijah was very special, right? But if you remember, and we're going to read this in a minute, but Elijah, right before he was going to be ascended to heaven, he asked Elisha, ask whatever you want to ask. And what did he ask? A double portion of your spirit. Like, what? What a thing to ask. And then he tells him, well, if you see me when I raise up, then you will have your wish granted. And he gets that. He gets a double portion. And you know, the most fascinating study is that understanding what that means corresponds to some extent, you know, there's many meanings, but one of the meanings that really stands out for me is that anybody can tell off the top of your head how many miracles has Elijah performed. How many miracles? Total number of miracles. If you don't know, that's fine. How many miracles? 14, okay? Guess how many miracles Elisha performed? You remember, twice the Spirit. 28, yes. So I have a list. Actually, I'm going to pass it around with all the miracles that Elisha and Elijah performed. Do you mind, sir, take one and pass? And as we study through the book of 2 Kings, for the time that we have today, we see, and by the way, on the back, I put in various kings of the northern kingdom and of the divided kingdom. That really helps me keep things in perspective, and it aligns even with the prophet that kind of corresponds to each king. So as we see here, if you're looking on the back, you see Elisha that corresponds with the king, the reign of the king Joram and Jehu, primarily Joram and Jehu. This was taking place about 150 years after David. 150 years after David. And the ministry of this great prophet, Elisha, took place around 892 till like 832, about 60 years of history. And really, as one reads through the book of 2 Kings, one of the most stunning facts is that you see Elisha, and you see Elisha perform miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle, and all of them are right here before our eyes. And in today's lesson, as we cover really what it was the reading for this week, I would like for us to go pretty much miracle by miracle to see what happened here with Elisha as prophet. So let us go back and really see a bit of the context here with Elijah ascending to heaven. And I'm going to take a couple of volunteers, and let's please read chapter 2. We are in chapter 2 on page 562. If I can have a volunteer read from verse 1 through verse 8. 1 through 8. Who wants to read this? Jeff?
And it came to pass when the Lord was about to take up Elijah into heaven by a whirlwind, that Elijah Elijah went with Elisha from Gilgal. Then Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, please, for the Lord has sent me on to Bethel." But Elisha said, "As the Lord lives and as your soul lives, I will not leave you." So they went down to Bethel. Now the sons of the prophets who were at Bethel came out to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that the Lord will take away your master from over you today?" And he said, "Yes, I know. Keep silent." Then Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, please, for the Lord has sent me on to Jericho." But he said, "As the Lord lives and as your soul lives, I will not leave you." So they came to Jericho. Now the sons of the prophets who were at Jericho came to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that the Lord will take away your master from over you today?" So he answered, "Yes, I know. Keep silent." Then Elijah said to him, "Stay here, please, for the Lord has sent me on to the Jordan." But he said, "As the Lord lives and as your soul lives, I will not leave you." So the two of them went on. And 50 men of the sons of the prophets went and stood facing them at a distance, while the two of them stood by the Jordan. Now Elijah took his mantle, rolled it up, and struck the water, and it was divided this way and that, so that the two of them crossed over on dry ground.
So the context here, as you can see, Elijah knew that his time was ready to come up, and it looks like he tried to distance himself, maybe because just to be alone with God. And Elijah, "Nope, I'm not going to leave you. I'm going to be right there with you. I want to see the whole thing." And he was a great person. I mean, if you think about how he was brought earlier on, he was very dedicated, very passionate about ministry and being picked up. God is the one that selected him. So on 3 occasions here, right, Elijah says, "Can I have some space here?" And he says, "No, I'm going to be with you." And it's great that he did that. And that's a lesson to us, because sometimes you may be told, "No, you can't have that." And what is the response? You can say, "Well, I guess I'm sorry. Okay, I hear you. I'm not going to do it." But the message here from Elisha is that, well, just because you ask me not to, I'm still going to persist. And then by persisting, then he gets his wish. So verse 8 ends here with Elijah took in the mantle, rolled it, struck the water, and divided the water, the river, and then they passed through the river. And then it was verse 9. I love this section here. Let's take another volunteer to read verses 9 through 12. 9 through 12. Elena.
And so it was when they had crossed over that Elijah said to Elisha, "Ask, what may I do for you before I am taken away from you?" Elijah said, "Please let a double portion of your spirit be upon me." So he said, "You have asked a hard thing. Nevertheless, if you see me when I am taken, if I am taken from you, it shall be so for you, but if not, it shall not be so." Then it happened as they continued on and talked, that suddenly a chariot of fire appeared with horses of fire, and separated the two of them. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. And Elijah saw it, and he cried out, my father, the chariot of Israel and its horsemen." So he saw him no more. And he took hold of
That's it, verse 12. Very good. So he sees it, and that's right, I said to 12.
They were still one.
Oh, I apologize. Keep reading. To 12. I'm sorry.
And he took hold of his own clothes and tore them into
2 pieces. So he saw it, and because I saw it, right, that means I get the double portion of your spirit. And that's wonderful. So then it doesn't take much. And just 2 verses later, he performed the first miracle. So let's please read now verses 13 through verse 14. Verse 14 is when the first miracle of Elisha just, right, a few minutes before his master, right, it's taken up, right, and then he remains by himself with the mantle, and it doesn't take him much, and he immediately performs his first of 28 miracles. Verses 13 and 14, please. Can I volunteer? This is miracle number 1. Go ahead, Kay.
He also took up the mantle of Elijah that had fallen from him and went back and stood by the bank of the Jordan. Then he took the mantle of Elijah that had fallen from him and struck the water and said, "Where is the Lord God of Elijah?" And when he also had struck the water, it was divided this way and that, and Elisha crossed over.
So the same miracle now Elisha performs, piece of cake. I can do the same thing Elijah was doing, and more, and twice as much. So that is miracle number 1. Then we go, and I'm not going to read through the whole. I'm sure, I hope that you read all this because it's very fascinating reading. But We're going to just go miracle by miracle. Now we are in miracle number 2, and this is where healing of the water occurs. So let's please read verses 19 through 21. Actually to 22. 19 to 22. Go ahead. Somebody can read this, please. Who wants to read this? Go ahead, Trace.
Then the men of the city said to Elijah, "Please notice the situation of this city is pleasant, and my Lord sees, but the water is bad and the ground barren." And he said, "Bring me a new bowl and put salt in it." So they brought it to him. Then he went out to the source of the water and cast in the salt there and said, "Thus says the Lord, I have healed this water. From it there shall be no more death or barrenness." So the water remains healed to this day, according to the word of Elijah which he spoke.
We don't know exactly what made the water bitter or bad. It's possible that maybe it was just maybe not pure, or maybe it was salted, or maybe it didn't taste right, had some make people sick, right? I mean, the water could be so bad that it can make people sick, then you don't drink it. And obviously that could mess up the entire city to not have a good source of water. And this is no easy feat to be able to turn the whole water, go to the source, do something at the source, and voila, all of a sudden there's great water that stay like that, right? It's just not just temporary, it's fixed forever. So that is miracle number 2. Miracle number 2. Then a couple of verses later, we can see here in chapter 24. Actually, this one is quite dramatic. I'm sure that you're familiar with it. I'm going to have somebody read verses 23 through 25. Actually, just to 24. 23 and 24. Go ahead.
I kind of like this.
You like this one. I thought so. Go ahead, sir.
Then he went up from there to Bethel, and as he was going up the road, some youths came from the city and mocked him and said to him, "Go up, you bald head. Go up, you bald head." So he turned around and looked at them and pronounced a curse on them in the name of the Lord. And 2 female bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the youths.
42. Every single one of them. Can you imagine being an old man? Can you imagine? And then being 42. Bold too, right? No, that's no. I didn't say it.
Is it bright back there?
If only I had a little Elisha.
2 bears. Okay, just watch for the doors. That would be the end of joy. No more joy. But, think about it. 42 youth, just a bunch of scoundrels making fun of an old man. I don't know. You may say, well, he went a little bit far to just really. Can you imagine? And this is a place where we can ask ourselves, is it okay to curse on behalf of God, other people? I mean, again, the study is not about that, but he did that, and God listened, and then he, out of the woods, I guess, 2 bears came, and 42. I mean, to me, it's like, how in the world not even one survives? So, very, very dramatic, very dramatic. That was miracle. Yes, it was a miracle. Miracle number 2. Then we see in chapter 3, don't have to go very far, in verse 16, we see the 4th miracle that he performs. Let's please read verses 15 through 17. Who wants to read this? 15 through 17. This is miracle number 4, and it's about filling of the valley with water. Who wants to read this? Joy?
But now bring me a musician. And it happened when the musician played that the hand of the Lord came upon him. And he said, "Thus says the Lord, make this valley full of ditches. For thus says the Lord, you shall not see wind, nor shall you see rain, yet that valley shall be filled with water, so that you, your cattle, and your animals may drink."
And it was so, and that was miracle number 4. So at the word of Elijah, Elijah talks to God, there's no water, and then water just materializes, and that is miracle number 4. Then we go to same chapter, then we go in verse 22. Verse 22, we see miracle number 5 here. It's the deception of the Moabite with the valley of blood. Let's please read verses 21 to 23. 21 to 23. Elena?
And when all the Moabites heard that the kings had come up to fight against them, all who were able to bear arms and soldiers were gathered, and they stood at the border. Then they rose up early in the morning, and the sun was shining on the water, and the Moabites saw the water on the other side as red as blood. And they said, "This is blood. The kings have surely struck swords and have killed one another. Now therefore Moab be destroyed."
So you see, it's a little bit, you can say, well, is this really a miracle? Yes, it was a miracle. Water being turned into blood here. And really it was under the umbrella, under the leadership, under the prophetic presence of Elisha that this occurred. And this was miracle number 5. Then we go into chapter 4. We are in 2 Kings chapter 4 on page 565. And this has to do with the widow's oil. Miracle number 6 is the miracle of the vessels of oil. So let me see. Let's please read. Let's read the context here, because this is definitely something that we can easily understand what happened, what took place in chapter 4, verse 1. Let's just read the entire section here through verse 7, please. 1 through 7. Who wants to read this section? Tracy?
A certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried to Elijah, saying, Your servant my husband is dead, and you know that your servant feared the Lord, and the creditors come to take my 2 sons to his slaves. Elijah said to her, What shall I do for you? Tell me, what do you have in the house? And she said, Your maidservant has nothing in the house but a jar of oil. Then he said, Go, borrow vessels from everywhere, from all your neighbors, empty vessels. Do not gather just a few. And when you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you and your sons. Then pour it into all these vessels and set aside the full ones. So she went from him and shut the door behind her and her sons, who brought the vessels to her. And she poured it out. Now it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said to her son, Bring me another vessel. And he said to her, There is not another vessel. So the oil ceased. Then she came and told the man of God, and he said, Go, sell the oil and pay your debt, and you and your sons live on the rest.
Isn't it fascinating how he just comes up to perform that miracle? Obviously, it wasn't a little money that was owed if really the 2 sons were going to be taken into slavery. And really, the idea was brilliant to perform that miracle, and you have a bunch of oil now, sell the oil, and then pay all the debt. And then she and her sons solve their problem. So that is miracle number 6. Then we go to miracle number 7, which is a prophecy that the Shunammite woman could have a son. So let's please read verses 11 through 16. 11 through 16. Who wants to read this? 11 through 16. Jeff?
And it happened one day that he came there, and he turned into the upper room and lay down there. Then he said to Gehazi, his servant, Call the Shunammite woman. When he had called her, she stood before him. Tillman.
What's that? Please through 16.
Okay. And he said to him, Say now to her, Look, you have been concerned for us with all this care. What can I do for you? Do you want me to speak on your behalf to the king or to the commander of the army? She answered, I dwell among my own people. So he said, What then is to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, Actually, she has no son and her husband is old. What did you say?
16, through 16.
Sorry.
It's okay.
So he said, Call her.
Until you get to the miracle, then you can stop.
When he had called her, she stood in the doorway. Then he said, About this time next year you shall embrace a son. And she said, No, my lord, man of God, do not lie to your maidservant.
Don't be kidding me. Are you serious? Obviously, this woman has been trying maybe to be pregnant for many, many years, and now she's advanced in age. And this man of God comes, Elijah says, "You're gonna have a son." It's like, don't joke, please. That's just, it could hurt, to really get my hopes up. And of course, verse 17. Go ahead, please read 17 too. Actually, read all the way to 17 and 18.
But the woman conceived and bore a son when the appointed time had come, of which Elisha had told her. And the child grew. Now it happened one day that he went out to his fathers to the reapers.
Yep, so guess what? As he said, you're going to have a boy. And then that's exactly what happened. That is miracle number 7. So, isn't this study fun so far? Yes. I know that when you read, it's very hard to just see them all 28, but going from 1, 2, 3, 4, it just puts in perspective what this Elijah, he was such a powerhouse of miracles. I would say maybe, I would even say, and I didn't study this, but I would say that maybe only Jesus performed more miracles than this person, Elisha. I'm not aware of any other prophet or any other man of God that performed 28 miracles in such a short span of time. Rhett?
Yeah, I was going through this and you read through each one of these. My only question was, okay, here's a list of all these miracles. What is the purpose God is having this list? Because they're just random.
Right.
They're just, it's like, and we know time has passed because here even Shumanite woman
Right.
bears a son.
Right.
And as a matter of time, he's gotten older.
Right.
But not too old, obviously.
Right.
She's already old. But I just wondered, are you going to get to that?
Well,
at
no.
the end? Was there a
Right.
purpose that
Well,
God kind of...
Well, what is the purpose of miracles when anybody performs miracles?
To prove Jesus Christ is our...
Well, in the case of Jesus Christ, that was the case, right? To confirm that whoever is speaking, God is with him, right? Yes, I mean, this is one of the reasons why Jesus performed the miracles. Right.
You have a discourse of text that leads to a miracle.
Right.
And a purpose stated. This is just a list of what he's done.
Yeah.
I just was wondering.
Well, but it's possible that because he had the double spirit, right? Because he had the double spirit. Let me ask you a question. I can pick on anybody. I'm going to pick on, I don't know, anyone. And I ask you, if you had a double portion of Elijah's spirit, right, Don? And then you have that power in you, and you could make things happen by miracle. And you could help a poor woman save the 2 sons from going into slavery. And you can raise somebody from the dead if needed. And you can, right, put water. You go to a city, you go back up north, and you have the power to go to, I don't know, to the beautiful city where Oakland, right, or those Oregon, right? So, or Oakland too, for that matter, and straighten the problems that the city has, right? I mean, wouldn't you do something about it? I mean, solve the homeless crisis or whatever big problem, and you had it in you. You know you could do it. Wouldn't you do it? Of course you would. And then who gets the glory? God gets the glory.
And yet with Jesus, he fed the 5,000, he fed the 4,000, he sent them on the way because they just came to eat.
Right.
He also takes and puts a purpose for every
Right.
miracle.
Right.
Now, obviously, he had done so many things that they
Right.
couldn't be contained in
Right,
the book,
right.
like John chapter 21. So
Right.
Elijah, the miracle of the big sacrifice at Mount Carmel.
Right.
I see intent and I see purpose.
Right.
I just wondered why
Yeah.
this, because Jesus never mentions Elisha, if I remember, but he always
Only one time. One time Elisha is mentioned in the New Testament. That's it. Right. Elisha only one time, which is not a lot. Right.
Maybe
So,
because there were random miracles.
so I mean,
They're not random, but
that
I mean, there's got to
right.
be some purpose.
Right.
It's just we don't have a historical context
Right.
with purpose.
Right. So other than the generic purpose of really any prophet, right, you can perform miracles on God's behalf. God is with you, right? And really that is just the reality. I think in his case, because he had the ability and somehow even a greater ability than other prophets, certainly greater ability, twice as great of an ability as Elijah, In some cases, you can say, oh, what is the purpose? That was very selfish to really punish those 42 teenagers, right? What was the purpose for that? Well, maybe make him feel real good. I don't know, maybe those kids are really bad. So I guess each one may have had their purpose, but all in all, most of them had a good reason behind it as to serve people, help people, make a difference, right? And really proclaim that God was with him, because later on we see that even kings acknowledge him as being the man of God, right? So let us keep going. So we are, and we just talked about with the fact that the Shunammite woman would have a son, and that is number 7. Then we see number 8, the resurrection of the Shunammite son. Number 8. So let's please read. Let's please read verses 32 through 34. 32 and 34. Same chapter, chapter 4. Who wants to read this? Kay?
When Elisha came to the house, there was the child lying dead on the bed. He went in therefore, shut the door behind the two of them, and prayed to the Lord. And he went up and lay on the child, and put his mouth on his mouth, his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands. And he stretched himself out on the child, and the flesh of the child became warm.
Yep. So actually you can continue. You can continue through verse 37.
He returned and walked back and forth in the house, and again went up and stretched himself out on him. Then the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. And he called Gehazi and said, Call the Shunammite woman. So he called her, and when she came into him, he said, Pick up your son. So she went in, fell at his feet, and bowed to the ground. And then she picked up her son in her mouth.
Can you imagine? I mean, this is not just easy, small miracle. Raising somebody from the dead, raising somebody from that's pretty big. And it's going to get even bigger and bigger, culminating with the very last one, which we're going to get to in a minute. But these are no easy to perform miracles as to raise somebody from the dead. Right? So, why are you laughing? Yeah, I mean, I guess it's true. I mean, some miracles are more difficult than others, I imagine. I mean, I guess nothing is difficult with God if God is with you. Right, so I can totally see that. So, all right, that is miracle number 8. Few verses down, Elijah is in power. And miracle number 9 is about the healing of the gourds, right? So let's please read verses. Who can read starting in verse 38? 38 through 41. Who wants to read this? Go ahead, Brad.
And Elijah returned to Gilgal, and there was a famine in the land. Now the sons of the prophets who were sitting before him, and he said to his servant, Put on the large pot and boil stew for the sons of the prophets. So one went out into the field to gather herbs and found a wild vine, and gathered from it a lapful of wild gourds, and came and sliced them into the pot of stew, though they did not know what they were. Then they served it to the men to eat. Now it happened as they were eating the stew that they cried out and said, Man of God, there is death in the pot, and they could not eat it. So he said, Then bring some flour, and he put it in the pot and said, Serve it to the people that they may eat, and there was nothing harmful in the pot.
Not sure exactly what happened here. They made some kind of food, and I don't know, apparently it was death, and it could be, back then, it could be something infectious disease, or, I mean, we know that through the years, it could be something that you could die, right?
He does say that they put wild boars, which they didn't know what they were.
Yeah, but that shouldn't be like killing somebody. Maybe it was something poisonous, right?
The gourds were poisonous, but I'm not.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm not very familiar with the different types of...
The only gourds I know is that they make like birdhouses out of it, but you don't eat the middle of it. I never
Right.
heard of it.
Well, right, but if you're going through a famine, you would eat pretty much anything that looks like...
Well,
Yes.
I want you to think for a second, what's
Yeah.
the gourd look like? It can look like a cantaloupe, it can look like a honeydew, it can look like a watermelon.
Yeah,
But then there's some that look like them, but they're not.
and the poisonous,
There's a lot
yeah.
of things, if you don't know what you're doing,
Right.
well, need it.
But if you're going to be starving, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to die one way or the other, so might as well take my chances.
But I mean, they always say that if you're out in the wild,
Right.
pay attention to what the animals eat, because that will probably not kill it.
Right.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah.
Exactly, yes. So that is miracle number 9. A few verses later, and then we read about miracle number 10. This is the miracle of the bread. Miracle of the bread. Okay, we got time. We're halfway through. So, almost more than halfway through. So let's please read verses 42 through verses 44. 42 to 44. Who wants to read this? Miracle number 10. Go ahead, Tracy.
Then a man came from Baal Shalisha and brought the man of God bread of the first fruits, 20 loaves of barley bread, and newly ripened grain in his knapsack. And he said, Give it to the people, and they may eat. But his servant said, What? Shall I set this before 100 men? He said again, Give it to the people, that they may eat. For thus says the Lord, They shall eat and have some left over. So he set it before them, and they ate and had some left over, according to the word of the Lord.
Okay, so there's your answer, Mark. It could be a miracle smaller, because Jesus fed how many? 5,000 and 4,000. Well, he does 100. That's a smaller miracle, I guess.
It's basically the same
Principle, same idea.
except Jesus
Miracle.
had fish too.
Yes, exactly. Fish too, multiply the fishes as well. But great. I mean, you have a few loaves of bread and you're going to feed 100 people, 100 men, hungry men during a famine, right? You're going to eat. And you could eat a lot of bread, especially the bread is good. I remember because when I was in Romania, our family, we stopped at a place and we ate bread that was like fresh out of the oven. And everybody get a small bread, and everybody almost finished the whole bread. So you can eat a lot of bread. So you had to have made at least probably 100 loaves from just a couple. So 100 loaves of bread, it's a big pile of bread. Of course, it's not 5,000, but
And it says there was some left over.
yes, of course. Full too, like keep on eating, I can't, right? Let me take some home. Okay, that's miracle number 10. Then we go to miracle number 11. This one is one of the most popular one. It has to do with Naaman, right? We're very familiar about this. It's about, just going to paraphrase. Remember, it was a person called Naaman, and somebody heard that there was a prophet of God and says, oh, you should go there because this prophet of God, he's going to heal you. And long story short, let's please see. The servant came near to him and said, my father, if the prophet, okay, I feel bad to not read the whole thing. It's a big section, but let's please read the verse 9 through verses 14, please. 9 through 14. I love this section of scriptures. Who wants to read it? Go ahead, Jeff.
Then Naaman went with his horses and his chariot, and he stood at the door of Elisha's house. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored to you, and you shall be clean. But Naaman became furious and went away and said, Indeed, I said to myself, he will surely come to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, and wave his hand over the place and heal the leprosy. Are not the Abinan and the Harper?
Yes.
The rivers of Damascus better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned and went away in rage. And his servants came near and spoke to him and said, My father, if the prophet had told you to do something great, would you not have done it? How much more then, when he says to you, Wash and be clean? So he went down and dipped 7 times in the Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God. And his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean.
Amazing. Long story here because we can talk about hours about, there's so much symbolism here. But cured of leper, just like that. Rhett?
And like you just said, so much symbolism. This miracle had purpose.
Yeah.
It teaches us something that
Right.
when God says
Right.
to do something and you do it, the results.
Exactly.
I mean, I've loved this one. Of course,
Yeah.
well, the bad results would be hazy.
Right.
But the bottom line is I see purpose
Yes.
for the story.
Yeah.
We use it all the time.
Right.
In trying to teach someone that, baptism and the necessity of it's not a work. Neither was Naaman's dipping himself.
Right.
It's obedience.
Right.
But anyway.
Right.
But all of these miracles are for our benefit.
Right.
All of them were written for us to recall.
Right.
They were all written down,
Mhm.
and maybe that's the purpose,
To see the power of God, to
teach,
see,
yeah.
right.
Scripture
I
tells
see,
us.
I don't know. I
Right.
guess I'm just.
Right.
I read through this miracle. Didn't faze me.
Right.
Naaman fazed me.
Mhm. Right.
Jesus' miracles. When the paralytic is dropped down through the roof.
Right.
Son, your sins are forgiven, and all the
Right.
animosity of those around him says, so
Right.
you think it's hard to forgive sins? Let's watch this. Get up
Right.
and walk.
Right.
But
I'm not saying there's not purpose,
Right.
and I'm not saying it's not for our benefit.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes I
Right.
grapple what that benefit might be.
Right, and that may be one of the benefit is that one of the purpose is that it makes for a good Bible study for us to for us to be able to think. It could be this, it could be that, right?
But you know the power of God. I mean, someone else that's learning the word, that
Yes.
miracle may have a purpose to that person.
Yes.
For you, it's just another miracle, and you understand where it comes from.
Right.
Other people.
It
may
could have many
grow
meanings,
differently.
indeed,
I
yes.
could read that miracle where you understand it like
Right.
I see it a different way.
Right.
It changes my heart.
Right. So taking us to miracle number 12, speaking about the impact that a miracle has on different people, on Gehazi, it didn't have a very good impact because he was greedy, and then he ended up getting the lepers that Naaman had, he got it. So verses 26, miracle number 12. Who wants to read this? Actually, yes. 26. Who wants to read verse 26? Go ahead, Brett.
Then he said to him, did not my heart go with you when the band turned back from his chariot to meet you? It is time to receive money and to receive clothing, olive groves, vineyards, sheep, and oxen, male and female servants. Therefore the leprosy of Naaman shall cling to you, and your sins forever. And he went out from his presence, leprous as white as snow.
Yes. So then that is miracle number 12, which is the perception of Gehazi's transgression. That was one miracle because he just knew where Gehazi went, right? So that's one miracle. And then the second miracle is the cursing of Gehazi with leprosy, because then the second miracle, right in the next passage, let's please read verse 27. Jeff?
Therefore the leprosy of Naaman shall cling to you and your descendants forever. And he went out from his presence leprous as white as snow.
Not just for himself, but even for his descendants forever. Can you imagine? What a curse. And again, that's a miracle. You can call it a curse. Well, it is a miracle.
Is this similar to the two people in Acts who sold their house and lied about
Yes,
how much
yes.
they're giving?
Ananias and Sapphira. Yes,
Because
lied to the Spirit.
Yeah, I mean, it said, he asked him, where did you go?
Yes.
And he said, your servant did not go anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
If he had said,
Of course.
I went to get payment,
Maybe, right.
would that have been okay? Because that was the deal.
Yeah, but he
originally.
lied, right.
But I think it's because it's the greed, he's trying to hide
Right.
it, and that's why
Reveal
it's
his
the
heart.
curse. And I've seen a
It's a
parallel
great point.
there. Would you agree?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Absolutely. So we only have 2 more minutes and about 12 miracles to go. And we're not going to take another study for next week. We could, but we just have to move on. Real quickly. So miracle number 14 has to do with an axe, a head of an axe, which is metal, that floats to the top of the water. And that is miracle number 14. It was lost, and it says, okay, where is it? We're right there. And then it just came up. Then 15, miracle number 15 has to do a prophecy about the Syrian battle plans. Miracle number 16 has to do with Elijah praying, and that the eyes of the people were opened to see that the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. This is a very magnificent miracle here to just open the eyes of the people, and that gave them a lot of heart. And then let me see, chapter 17, smiting the Syrian army with blindness. Fascinating story. I'm not going to go through because of the sake of time. 18, restoring the sight of the Syrian army. Another miracle. And then he goes on and on and on and on. And I'm not going to even touch on all of these because some of them they go into some detail. But I want to mention for the 1 minute that I have left to read the very last one. Very last one. So now we are in 2 Kings chapter 13, verse 21. And what happens here is absolutely phenomenal, I think. So Elisha dies, okay? Elisha dies, his bones are in the grave. And then a few years later, down the line, some person died, right? And then dig a hole, just happened Elijah to be buried there, and his bones are there. So they take a dead man, throw him in the hole in the ground. This dead man's flesh touches the bones of Elijah, and what happens with the dead man? Comes alive. Comes alive. Isn't that incredible? Who wants to read this? Last passage. Who wants to have the last word? Okay. Okay. Just please read 2 Kings chapter 13, verse 21.
So it was as they were burying a man that suddenly they spied a band of raiders, and they put the man in the tomb of Elisha. And when the man was let down and touched the bones of Elisha, he revived and stood on his feet.
Isn't that incredible? That is just fascinating. We can study about that, I think, for a whole hour in itself. His bones, his dead bones are there.
Talk about swan song.
Isn't that incredible? Isn't that incredible? And then bones perform a miracle way long after Elijah is dead. I mean, his bones, it takes like years for bones to decompose so that it's just bones. And he still performs miracles. Fascinating.
I was going to say, it goes from one sentence to the next sentence. And Elisha's dead, buried, and now bones. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know, you be a
Yeah.
doctor.
Yeah.
How long does that
About
take?
7 years, actually. Yeah.
So you talk about
Depending on the dirt.
quickly
Yeah.
a sentence.
Yes, happens just like that.
Can go like that.
Yeah. But fascinating. So he's way past that and he still performs miracles. So talk about having a double portion of God's Spirit or the Spirit of Elijah. Excellent. Our time is up. We'll continue. Please continue to stay on track with the reading and we will study again, continue the study on Wednesday. Thank you.